to our Friday Forum. We're so glad to have Steve Frank here. We want to give him all the time we possibly can because he has much to share. And Wendy will introduce our speaker and tell you how to ultimately ask questions.
Thank you, Jan, and welcome to everybody out there. It's great that you're all joining us. This is our last 2020. We thought we'd be done with this, but Steve, we might be doing this for another year. You never know, as long as you're willing. It's kind of pathetic. But Steve Frank is our favorite political pundit, and I think he has a really interesting announcement to tell us about some other endeavor he's going to be working for this next year. And with that, I'll introduce Steve, and please take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Wendy. And not to hold people into suspense, shortly after our last meeting, I had the opportunity of spending some time in Yolo County with Jan and her husband, Peter, and a bunch of county chairs from Northern California and some other conservative political activists. And shortly after that, I made an announcement that I'm running for chair of the California Republican Party. I felt it was time that we renewed voter registration, that we had communication between the state party and our nominees and our county chairs and county committees, and that we work to defeat Gavin Newsom either through a recall or at the ballot box for November of 2022. Excuse me. And so the party has done a good job of sending out beg letters asking for money, but has not done the job of telling us how to get rid of Gavin Newsom or how to make a majority of Republicans in the legislature. In fact, and I'll begin my presentation now, on Monday, the legislature reconvenes, and the state assembly is not going to be meeting in the state capitol. It will be meeting in the basketball arena of the Kings, Sacramento Kings basketball team. And the state Senate will be meeting somewhat in the Senate chambers of the state capitol. And that's when we're able to get new legislation introduced for the new session. And this is the time, the month of December, when we should be contacting our elected officials with ideas for legislation that we want, whether it be on guns and protection of our First Amendment rights, whether it be on lowering taxes or repealing taxes that have harmed our job creation. Just remember, during this whole pandemic, people are losing their jobs, but on January 1st, the state is mandating that minimum wage goes up so that even more people can lose their jobs. And that's something that we're going to have to face in the new year, that California is not in a recession. That's the good news. The bad news is we are in a depression, and we're unable to get out of the depression because Gavin Newsom and his Democrat buddies continue to dig the hole deeper for us. And, you know, we're all waiting for that final notice that we're not allowed out of our homes. We're not allowed out of our homes without a mask on. Only essential workers are allowed to go to work. And let me define that, is if you work for Walmart, you're an essential worker. If you work for Costco, you're an essential worker. If you work for a liquor store, you're an essential worker. If you work for a marijuana dispensary, you are an essential worker. On the other hand, we have a problem where real people with real jobs are not allowed to go to work. Go to San Francisco, not too far from your location, and it is a ghost town. There are almost no cars on the streets. The mayor has told the tech firms that they must keep their workers at home. All the other firms are told the same. So there's no bodies, no employees in the downtown San Francisco area. And most of the city is cut off by cars because the city has a new policy on at least a dozen major streets, including Market Street, the main street in town, no cars allowed. And so they're making it difficult for people to get around unless they're on bike or willing to walk. And now we find that the city of San Francisco is just a total ghost town. And the final thing, and it affects you in Santa Clara County as it does the whole of Silicon Valley, all the way up to San Francisco. 2 days ago, Hewlett Packard announced that they are leaving town. They're leaving the state. They're going to Houston because they can no longer afford to do business in the state of California. So thousands of jobs are going to be lost, not only of HP workers in the Silicon Valley, but the vendors, the suppliers, the consultants, the other individuals that work with and around Hewlett Packard. Now that HP has left, you can expect other firms to leave. As you know, Tesla decided to build a mega factory, not in California, but in Austin, Texas, because they wanted a place where they could do business. They received all their permits to build a mega factory, including environmental permits, zoning permits, all exemptions, etc., in a matter of 6 weeks. They predicted it would take 5 years to do the same here in the state of California. And time is money. And the difference between 6 weeks of using that first shovel to open up the campus in Austin, Texas for Tesla versus 5 years of paying off lobbyists and attorneys and just waiting for the ability to create jobs and an expanded business. Tesla made the right decision. HP made the right decision. And watch as leases are ended. You'll see more and more firms in the Silicon Valley moving quickly out of town. In fact, in San Jose, or Santa Clara County, I should say, in the month of December, this month, 8,800 jobs will be lost based on reports to the Department of Labor in the state of California. When a company has to fire people, they have to notify the state. And so far, 8,800 jobs have been lost just in the month of December in the county of Santa Clara. That's a big revenue hit. Now, let's look at some court decisions. We're talking about the COVID and the lack of science, the junk science, and the totalitarian policies of, as I like to call him, Governor Nuisance, because he's become a nuisance to all of us. We now have, we're on the brink of closing down the whole state again. But the good news is that the courts are now opening the churches in California, just as they opened up the churches in New York. It took a Supreme Court decision, and it took Donald Trump putting Amy Coney Barrett on the Supreme Court to reinstate the First Amendment as part of the Constitution for all Americans. And so we're happy that this has occurred. There's no excuse now for any church in California to be closed. In fact, there's no excuse for any church in America to be closed as of this Sunday. And of course, we've always had the option, if we didn't want to go to our local church, we could always go at 10 a.m. on Sunday morning to the Church of Walmart, because that's essential. And government allows the Church of Walmart to exist, but doesn't allow your local church to exist. Crazy business, crazy business. Looking ahead for 2021, 2022, two very important issues. One is going to be a little bit confusing, but the state of California, the legislature, changed the rules because the Census Bureau is not going to be able to give the state until April the census data to create excuse me, a redistricting of our legislative districts. That means that the state of California, by legislative edict, has till December 15th for the redistricting, December 15th of 2021, for the redistricting commission to give its report. And even that could be pushed. That means that we may not know until 3 months or less before filing opens for legislative seats what the legislative districts are going to be. It is possible, as being discussed in Sacramento, that with legislation passing, that they may exempt themselves from redistricting for the 2022 election and not have the redistricting until 2024. The problem with that is, regardless of us redistricting, we're going to lose 1 to 2 congressional seats for 2022, and there's no stopping that. So at least the congressional redistricting has to occur. We may wind up with later dates for filing, later dates for the primary in 2022, but we will still have a November election, general election in 2022. So that's the redistricting is an extremely important part of what's going to happen in 2021 and something that we need to watch. I recently read an article from 2011 on how the Democrat Party influenced and took over the redistricting program in the state of California for 2011, 2012. And it was very ingenious of them, how they created the commission, how they made sure the commission got their people in. And the way it worked is they were only hearing from committees, from communities and politicians and lobbyists. And that's a good thing, that everyone got to be heard. This time, and Jan, this is for you and your group, under the new rule, lobbyists and politicians won't be able to speak. Only recognized community groups will be able to speak. So while the assembly members and state senators won't be able to speak, your group, if you wish, will be able to speak to the redistricting commission. And the Democrats set up a whole series of phony organizations representing the Black community, Hispanic community, et cetera, to show that they are allegedly representative of those communities of color to speak to the redistricting commission. We need to be able to do the same. And it's important that every Republican group and every group that is aligned with us attend these hearings as well as speak at them and make the points whether or not the proposed redistricting is fair and equitable to all Californians, regardless of race, and that racism isn't part of the redistricting process as it was in 2011. And that's extremely important for us, is to look at the redistricting. The next issue is that of candidates for office. State Senator Melissa Melendez has already filed a committee to run for lieutenant governor. We know that John Cox and Kevin Faulkner and a gentleman by the name of Major Williams are planning to run for governor. Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher, the author of AB 5 and a wholly owned subsidiary of the AFL-CIO and the SEIU, is running for Secretary of State. She wants to run our elections, if you can imagine that. If you thought Padilla was bad, wait till you see Gonzalez Fletcher, what she'll do to us. And so the pushing and the shoving for the 2022 election has started. I've heard rumors that Steve Bailey is running for Attorney General again. And he announced that at a meeting that both Jan and Peter and I attended in YOLO about a month ago. And so we're beginning to see Republicans announce for it, and we'll see Democrats. The question then comes to the recall. And I'll talk about that for a moment, then I'll start answering questions that you have. But the recall has approximately 800,000 signatures in hand. It needs another 700,000 to qualify. And to assure that we have a qualification, we need 1.2 million signatures. To get these, the official recall committee, recallgavin2020.com, is providing the petitions and working with a lot of volunteers throughout the state to do this. But there are two political action committees, Cal Revival, led by Tom Del Beccaro, and I'm on the board of Cal Revival. We're raising money to pay for the recall. And so far, we've donated over $60,000 to Recall Gavin 2020 for their efforts. There is a second effort, political action committee effort, called Rescue California. And again, Tom Del Beccaro is the leader of that. And that one has a lot of famous names and celebrities on it, helping raise money. And it's meant to raise money from major donors as much as from small donors. And so there are three committees. All committees are using one petition. Now, here's something that you should be aware of. Today is December 4th, 2020. If you notice on the recall petition, that's recall petition dated 2020. January 1st, 2021 is not 2020. And so the petitions will have to be changed with that one minor change to it from 2020 to 2021 on January 1st. So you'll notice that minor change. And all these petitions can be downloaded from recallgavin2020.com, calrevival.com, or rescuecalifornia.com as all the same petition. There's only one petition to recall Governor Newsom. And all three groups are working together hand in hand to make sure that next spring we have the opportunity of getting a real governor, not, as I call him in my newsletter, the rich, privileged dilettante who pretends to be governor. Or sometimes he's the supreme leader, thinking that Kim Jong-un of North Korea is a good role model. So that's where we are on the recall. It's going well. We've been extended to March 17th of 2021, which should give us plenty of time to do the recall. So that gives you an idea of the things that are going on in the state of California. You may have some insight into the other issues, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have. This is going to be if you thought 2020 was a crazy year, wait till you see the politics of 2021. There's a question about the integrity of the recall. One of the things that's being done is the petitions are going to a company in Hanford, in the Central Valley, for verification. It's an old line company that does this sort of work. They do good work, and so we will know that the signatures we provide the Secretary of State or the registrar of voters in each county will be good signatures. We're getting about an 80 to an 82% verification rate. Normal, you get a 75% rate, so we're doing much better than normal. And it's such a large number of petitions, that's a good thing. So that will give you an idea as to where we are in the recall. Happy to answer any questions that you have. 2021 is going to be the time when we make a decision on the direction of the state party, where we start giving traction to our state candidates for office, where we start creating campaigns for local offices. And let's not forget that we need to make sure that we have candidates for city council, school board, board of supervisors, and every other local special district that there is in your county. That is the way that we win elections, by having as many candidates as possible on the ballot, not the fewest possible candidates. So Wendy, I'm back to you. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Steve. We have a bunch of questions out there. First off, as you were going through that list of candidates, Travis Allen wasn't mentioned. Is he out?
Who?
Travis Allen.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Travis Allen, as you may know, endorsed me for chair of the CRP last week, or this week, I should say. And he and I have kept a good relationship over the last 2 years. And he's made it clear to me and to others that he's going to be spending his time with his family and his business, and he's not going to be running for office in the near future. It may be down the line years from now, but not 2022.
Yeah, they seem to do a political hit job on him. It was really sad. Okay, about that redistricting. San Jose, on the backside of the Let's Make the Cops More Accountable bill, had something about redistricting. Does that impact any of the redistricting stuff that's going on?
Well, I've been reading Spotlight on San Jose, which has run some stories about that. And all that story is about is, while I was talking about the legislative redistricting, Assembly, State Senate, Congress, Board of Supervisors and city councils and school boards, if they're elected by district, also go through redistricting. And that was just to make it a little bit easier for your county to do your redistricting. And they threw it into that bill. Why? I don't know, but it had to be done anyway.
Yeah, it was some nonsense about not getting the census data in time.
Right. Well, they're not going to, as I mentioned, because of the COVID. Remember, they extended the period of the census. Interesting fact, in the whole nation, only 67% of the people responded to the census. And in California, 76% responded. There were some counties, and I believe Santa Clara was one of them, that had an 82% return.
It's because the Dems are pushing it really hard. The Dems are pushing it hard.
But notice how few people responded. When you think in the nation, 1/3 of the people said to the government, "We don't care."
Well, there is that.
My disappointment is it wasn't 2/3 that said we don't care.
I know. So sad.
Can I ask a question here?
Go for it.
Okay, I mean, we're glad Steve is running for chair of CAGOP, but I would venture to say that a large percentage of people on this call really don't understand what that means. And although we are so close to things and we just take a lot of things for granted, most people don't really understand how the Republican Party is organized in California. So do you want to take a couple minutes to explain that and explain why being chair of the California Republican Party is so very important to we conservatives?
Well, the chair of the state party is supposed to be the chief spokesperson for the Republican Party. Supposed to be. Technically, the incumbent is, but she, if you remember, about a month and a half ago, we had this big brouhaha about harvesting through ballot boxes that were distributed through counties and gun shops and churches and all. She was not the spokesperson. She allowed somebody else to speak on behalf of the party, and she was never quoted on the subject. She just turned it over to a guy named Hector Barajas, who represented the Senate caucus, even though that was her responsibility. It was her responsibility to turn over the names of 37,500 volunteers that the CRP collected to the counties and to the nominees of the party in their particular different districts. She did not do that. She hoarded those 37,500 names and in fact told volunteers who signed up with the state party, so you're in San Jose, you're in Los Altos, you're in Los Gatos, you're being told if you're signed up with the CRP, you're going to work on campaigns in Orange County. Now, you say, but I want to work here in my county. I have a congressional candidate, a state Senate candidate. I want to help. No, the state party wanted you to go where they wanted you to go. So we lost a lot of volunteers who felt that they were being used and abused by the state party. And so that was part of our problems. We indeed won 4 congressional seats. We also lost 2 state Senate seats. Brian Marriott got 43% of the vote, and that number 43 is going to keep coming up. 43% of the vote without any help for Congress from the state party, none. Greg Rath got 45% of the vote for Congress against Katie Porter without any help of the state party. Ted Howes not only didn't get help from the state party, but the state party denounced him, took away his endorsement, and he still got 43% of the vote without the help of the state party. The state party is supposed to help our candidates win, not stop them from winning. And so what's the purpose of the chair? To make sure we win all the seats. We had, and it's really egregious, down in Orange County, I think it's the 74th Assembly District, we had a candidate by name of Diane Dixon. We lost that seat by 2,500 votes for Assembly without a single bit of help from the state party. If the party had done its job, she would be the Assemblywoman being sworn in on Monday. And so what's the importance of the state party? To make sure we win all the seats, not just those of our friends and those that we're told that we have to help. But worse than that, I have a phrase, and I'm not sure where I got it from, but I've used it for years. There are some people who consider themselves a leader by seeing a parade, grabbing a baton, and then running to the front of the parade and pretending it's theirs. And that's not what the CRP chair should be. They should truly be the leader of the party, not just grabbing a baton and trying to get it taken care of. One last thing. I don't think there's anybody on this call that believes that San Jose or Santa Clara or the state of California should be a sanctuary state, right?
Right.
We're opposed.
Even our mayor now has changed his mind on that.
Okay. So yeah, I saw after it took a stabbing in a church for
Another
him
one.
to start thinking about it. So why is the state Republican Party being a sanctuary for the pro-Biden delegates to the Republican Party? Mike Madrid is the founder of the Lincoln Project and a delegate to the CRP. Complaints have been filed against him. No hearings have been held. No censure has been voted on by the state board. And there's at least 3 other people who've been complained about who have also come out publicly in favor of pro-Biden for president against Trump. And the state party has given them sanctuary. We now have, not only do we have an Hispanic caucus and a Asian Pacific caucus in the party and a Tea Party caucus, we now have a pro-Biden caucus in the California Republican Party. So when you ask the question, what's the role of the chair of the CRP? Is to get rid of the Democrats out of the CRP delegation.
And define us. Jim Urin has a couple comments out there. He says, thanks for running, Steve. You're going to make a world of difference because you can define what needs done, which is really good, and get us to work towards that. He also had an interesting thing. He said, if you're running for the chair, you probably can't endorse the 3 candidates you were talking about running for governor. But now could you compare and contrast John Cox, Faulkner, and Major Williams? Interesting.
Okay, I know all 3 of them. And the gentleman's correct. I shouldn't endorse anybody for any office. Because the role of the chair is to be an honest broker among all the candidates to keep the election fair and equitable until the time the state party actually does an endorsement. Excuse me. And at that time, I would be speaking out. So an analysis. Kevin Faulkner believes that the city and the county should own and run utilities. If you took an economics 1 course, that's called socialism.
Yeah. Wow.
He also has come out in favor of high taxes and a lot of other things. when he first got elected 8 years ago, the Board of Supervisors in San Diego County was Republican, and there was a majority of Republicans on the city council. Today, the Democrats have a majority on the Board of Supervisors, and there's only one Republican out of 9 on the San Diego City Council. That's his leadership. Then you have John Cox, who ran the last time. I've spoken to him several times in the last month or so. He's going to run a different type campaign, and he's been around the block. He's run for lots of offices. I first met John Cox in 2007 at an event when I was working for Mayor Giuliani, and John Cox was running for president of the United States as a resident of Illinois. And so I met Cox through, that's his home state, and he had run for several offices in Illinois. And I met Cox at a Giuliani Republican event, and that's how he started a relationship. He has a really good team behind him, and we'll see what happens. Then you have Major Williams, who comes from Pasadena. He just finished running for mayor of Pasadena, did not do well there. He is a well-intentioned conservative. I'm not sure what his name ID is, nor what his ability to gain traction or to raise money. It will take $5 million in the primary to win the primary. And by the way, for those who are asking the question, his first name on his birth certificate is Major. So that's why we call him Major Williams. That's his name, like your name is Wendy. So we call you Wendy. Mm-hmm. And so that's his name. And he's traveling the state. And it's always interesting to me. I've been getting calls from people all over the state. Do I know Major Williams? And what do I think? So he is making some inroads, and he is certainly making a lot of contacts. And I know he's traveling around the state. So those are the 3 major candidates. I will put a question mark on a 4th candidate. There have been efforts made to find a wealthy individual who is able to self-finance and is so well known that just being able to put their name in the ballot, they would win, something like Arnold Schwarzenegger did.
Another Terminator.
So, there. I've heard a lot of different names being bandied about. Peter Thiel is one of them, one of the founders of PayPal. And
would he
some
do it?
other.
I don't know if he'd do it.
I don't think he would either, but I'm just giving you the names. Some of you watch TV more than I do, and I do watch it a lot because if I'm looking at you right now like this, but over there is my TV monitor. So while I'm on my computer, I'm also watching TV all day long while I'm making my phone calls and all that. And so I'm
that
addicted
must
to
be
TV.
painful. Oh, yeah. Are you watching regular news?
No, I'm watching detective stories. NCIS.
Okay.
A thing called Murdoch Mysteries.
Okay.
Midsummer Murders, which is a wonderful show. And
I like those.
The British and the Australians have great detective stories on TV on a station called Ovation, a channel called Ovation. Wonderful stuff. and just great stuff. Anyway, so these folks, understand there's going to be a race, and Major Williams is making some headway, but I'm not sure how far he's going to go. There will be, if there is a recall, in 2003, there was 132 people that ran for governor in the recall. I'm not sure there'll be that many this time, but you could bet there'll be more than 50. And that was a crazy group, including a porn star who is just trying to make fun of the whole system. And she ran for governor. and she got her
Roseanne
15 minutes of
Barr.
fame. She got her 15 minutes of fame
Mhm.
and helped her website for her porn stuff. So such is life. But a lot of good, well-meaning people also ran, and that was the race where Arnold tried to tell us he was conservative. I did not support Arnold. I did not endorse him. I didn't even endorse him when he ran for governor in 2006 for re-election because I knew he wasn't a Republican. And as we now know, he isn't a Republican. But he does like the ladies, as we also found out,
Apparently.
not in the proper way.
Yeah.
But no, the 2022 is beginning to sort out. You're going to start seeing all sorts of wonderful things about Cox, all sorts of wonderful things about Faulkner. The key issue is, for me, I will ask any candidate running for office, did you support Donald Trump for president in 2020? That's the question you need to ask every candidate for every office.
True. Very true. Jen, are you finding anything out there?
Oh, there's a lot. Okay. Ramona Snyder. I'm glad you're on, Ramona. I hope she's thinking of running for office. It says, hi, Steve. Thanks for the info. How does a candidate run for 2022 if there is a chance they may be moved into a district from the one they are running for?
Well, that is the bigger problem. And the bigger problem is you have to take a look at the districts as they are now, if you're talking about Assembly and State Senate, and you have to make a determination as to which one you want to run for. And if you're forced to create a campaign and then you're pushed into another district, you could always run for that other district if you decide. But if you wait till the district lines are determined, you may not have the time to gain the support that you need. So now's the time for you to start looking at a district. And I especially suggest people who ran before run again. And somebody just suggested that I need to have solutions to problems, not just criticize people. My last time that I ran for chair, I put out I was the only candidate with a document called Back to Basics, which told how to save the Republican Party. In the next few days, I'm putting out another document called The Transformation of the California Republican Party. And Clint is right. It's not enough to criticize other people, but you also have to have solutions, and I'm providing them. But let me remind you, an addict does not recover until they admit they have a problem. That's the first step of recovery. And so we have to admit we have a problem with voter registration, with supportive candidates, with communications internally, with communications externally, and with the financing of our state party. And so if we're going to recover, we have to do that. But Clint is right. You also have to provide solutions. And I've already started providing solutions, and I'm going to formalize them in a couple of documents I'll be coming out in the next few days, discussing the solutions to the problems of the addiction of the Republican Party.
I submit we also have a problem in that we can't actually really define ourselves. What do we stand for? Sounds kind of screwy. I don't know.
Well,
Jane was asking.
I'll disagree with you, Wendy. Let me suggest this. There's always the big question, how do we do outreach to minority communities? What do we stand for? And let me say, there is absolutely no difference between a Hispanic mother, a Black mother, a white or Asian mother. All want the same thing. They want quality education for their children. They want job opportunities for themselves, and they want safety in the community. It doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, Black or white or Hispanic. Those are the things we want. And instead of going to the Black community and saying, African Americans, you should support us, we should talk instead of that. We should instead say to them, look, your values are our values. We want quality education, safe streets, job opportunities, the exact opposite of what the Democrats want.
Mhm.
And so our message should be on the policy, not on the name of the Republican Party. Once we get them to understand that our values and principles are the same, then we say, oh, by the way, those are the Republican Party values, and those values you don't like are those of the Democrat Party. So why aren't you voting Republican? So you have to take it from a different stance.
Mhm. But what I'm contending is these big name Republicans that are globalists and want to take all the jobs overseas and whatnot. Are they really Republican? I don't know. Anyway, Jane was wondering if there were any celebrities that were going to stand up like you talked to earlier. Jim Earn has a really interesting, I don't know if you probably hadn't heard, but we went down to our registrar of voters earlier this week and we were snapping photos because you saw how the guy found the discrepancies amongst the as voted in person numbers versus what comes out at the registrar. We were taking pictures of those long tapes. And he was wondering, really good question here, what can we do to audit our registrar? With all this stuff.
I believe the only way to do that at this time is a lawsuit. The legislators won't do it. The Board of Supervisors won't do it because they're the ones in charge, really, county by county. And it will take a lawsuit. And that's another thing that we need to be doing as a state party. The state party should be suing the Secretary of State of California to create an audited, honest voting rolls. We already know that 440,000 dead people and people who moved out of the state receive ballots. That's crazy. And it's not the responsibility, though I love the group, Election Integrity Project CA. They do a great job, but that's the responsibility of the state Republican Party.
Amen.
And if I were chair, that would be my number one priority, is making sure that we get honest elections. What good is it to have great candidates and finance good candidates when we know we have dishonest elections? And that doesn't even count the refusal of the governor, of the Secretary of State, to audit the voting rolls based on the errors, about 153,000 admitted by the DMV, 153,000 people, they registered to vote illegally. Mm-hmm. And the Secretary of State's done nothing about that. And so at some point in time, the state party needs to do its job, and it would under me, to sue to do it. Look, let's get real. The state party no longer runs Assembly, State Senate, or congressional campaigns. Those campaigns are run by the Assembly, State Senate, and congressional districts, congressional delegations. The state party finances it looks like, but they do it in two ways. One, the money is not theirs. It's money raised by the caucuses and the delegation. And they say how the money is to be spent. It's not money raised by the state party. And second is what we call pass-through money. And this is where it gets a little complex. You may remember receiving mail pieces from the state party for candidates for Assembly, State Senate, and for the ballot measures, the initiatives. And they all say CAGOP, as if the CAGOP paid for it. Actually, that money was paid for by the candidates themselves or their committees, or the ballot initiatives that we were supporting or opposing. And that's called pass-through money, as totally legal. And that's how they finance themselves. So when somebody says, we raised $17 million, well, yes, technically that's correct. but it wasn't the money that you raised. Others raised it for you.
Mhm. Cheating.
No,
Jan,
it's
what do you
not
see out there?
cheating. It's all done by law.
Oh,
And the reason
okay.
that it's done this way is for the candidates using the mail means they pay half price for postage. The state party, along with the Democrat Party, has a sweetheart deal that Congress approved with the post office that if they send out mail, the postage is half price.
Oh,
So
Interesting.
the
We should.
candidates save money.
Interesting. I like that.
I have a couple of questions from people here, and let's put two together. What is the status of Mike Garcia? Is he elected or is that still in question? And number two, what is the California Republican Party's plan to re-educate our indoctrinated young people?
Well, first, Mike Garcia won by 339 votes. That's been confirmed and certified. And he's declared victory. Christy Smith said she lost. And 339 votes is not a lot. But let me give you another number. 15,000. 15,000 is the number of Democrats over Republicans that registered in the last 4 years, in the last 2 years in the Garcia district. And I live in the Garcia district. So the Republican Party, by not having a voter registration program, caused Garcia to almost lose his seat. And the same could be said of Valadeo and Young Kim. John Morlock, who lost by about 12,000 votes, had a Democrat deficit of 27,000 new Democrats, which is why he lost by 12,000. Ling Chang, who lost by 11,000, had a deficit of about 15,000 Democrats in the last 2 years. So that's why the voter registration program is so important. We need to have it. The second part of your question is, what are we doing to help young people get involved? Obviously, we're not doing enough. I don't think we're able to. Look, I got involved as a teenager myself, and I understood why I got involved, but I'm not the normal person. I wasn't normal back then either. I really had a conviction that in 1958, I was selling newspapers on the corner in the Wilshire district of LA on election day. And the next day, the headlines read, Democrats sweep the state and the nation. And at that point, I became a Republican because I knew that wasn't good. And but I'm different. What we need to do, if we want young people to be involved, we have to make it important to them, show them what it means to them, whether it's better job opportunities, better quality education, a better standard and quality of lifestyle. We need to show them what's in it for them. And that's a lesson taught to me by Congressman Tom McClintock. Tom was chair of the Ventura County Central Committee in 1982 before he went to the assembly. And he and I have known each other ever since. And he said the way you get voters on your side is to make it simple. What's in it for them? So you want a better job when you get out of college? Or do you want to have a government job and barely survive? Or do you want to live on handouts from others and nonprofits? Do you want to really live big, or do you want to just live in a hovel? What type of life do you want for yourself and your family? And we need to make that case to the young people that the values of the free enterprise system, the free market, the values of constitutional government, the rule of law, and that all people are equal, not just some, but all people are equal, and that color and race and gender and preference and ethnicity have no place in the determination of quality education, jobs, or contracts. That everybody has an equal footing. And that's what we have to explain to them. Because quite frankly, unless we do, we're going to continue to see the socialism being taught on the campuses, and there's no pushback by people like us.
Very true. That's something I was having a text chat with Jane Kearney about that. I really think we need some sort of a marketing campaign or psyops or something like that to define us, that we are not really the party of old white men and uncool. And I don't know, I think we just need to get out there and define ourselves better and not let them define us.
We should be defined on the basis of experience, capabilities, not on the basis of age, of ethnicity, or sexual preference. And once we stop that, we then become a totalitarian nation because we become discriminatory. We put in systemic racism in our system. I just did a story about UCLA hiring an assistant chancellor for civil rights. Are you saying, at $300,000 a year, are you saying that UCLA is violating civil rights of students and faculty? If you are, why haven't you fired those people who did that? Why do you have to hire someone to point it out when you're saying it's there? If you know of an HR person, a personnel person, if you know of a professor that's a racist, get rid of them. Well, you don't need to hire a civil rights department. You just need to get rid of the bigots.
This is happening all over.
Yeah.
My kids' companies are hiring all of these diversity chairs and whatnot. It's like, wow, why weren't you doing that before if that was a problem?
Well, if it is a problem, they should get rid of the people who've hired based on race. And quite frankly, now that they're hiring on basis of race, it's illegal in the state of California. They should be fired for violation of Proposition 209.
That's right. That's right. I like that. Jan, do you have something out there?
I'm reading some of these comments. Well, you know what? It's almost 11 o'clock, 5 till, and
wow.
And we do want to honor Steve's time that he so graciously has donated to us. And do you have any word you want to share about the federal election?
It is as confusing as any I could ever imagine. Total chaos. But Donald Trump has done one thing that we need to be grateful for. Among a lot, he's done a lot of things we should be grateful for. But one thing he has done, he has shown the corruption of the American election system. Whether it be the Dominion, whether it be suitcases filled with ballots, whether it be dead people voting, whether it be 2,400 Californians who voted in Nevada illegally. And so he has created an experience for us to understand that we are almost no different than Venezuela. We run corrupt elections. Earlier, I said that in Chicago, they have a slogan, vote early and vote dead, vote often. They also have a slogan in Chicago, the dead have the right to vote because they have constitutional rights. And so we're seeing this in real time, and it is such a shock to our system. Yeah, we knew that a few people were doing bad, illegally registering their dogs or their parrots, whether for fun or for profit. In Hawthorne, California, in the South Bay, 2 people in this election registered 8,000 folks at one address. 8,000. And they were such stupid crooks, they got caught because they put them all in one address. And that's how they got caught. But 8,000, and they thought they could get away with it. And who did it? It was a candidate for mayor of Hawthorne.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Wow.
There's a lot. And you know what? And unless we clean up the whole corruption, for Republicans, it seems like it's we're going to lose every time. And
You can't ever win against their cheating. And the sad
So-
thing is, this has been test bedded in California for a decade, and now it's sweeping the whole nation.
So the number one thing the California Republican Party needs to do is just get into this and get rid of the corruption and sue Secretary of State, whatever it takes. We need to do it or we're lost forever.
But the first thing is you need to admit that there's voter fraud.
Yes. The first, that's right. As a recovering addict, you have to first admit the problem.
Yes.
But this is a
chairwoman and chairman and
right. There are two things we have to do immediately. One is sue the Secretary of State, and second, concurrent with that, we need to do a strong, robust voter registration program. That's what we need to do.
Yes. Yes.
And so, Steve, are you willing to come back next year and talk to us?
Well, of course. I love this opportunity, and I like the challenge of the questions that are raised, or even the challenge of some of the chat comments, because I could see some of the chat comments on my screen. And I like to be challenged, and I think it's important that leaders be challenged.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the first Friday is January 1st. So I'm assuming we're going to have to go till the 8th.
Why? There's no Rose Parade. There's no Rose Bowl game.
That's a good point. Yeah. But some of us may be a little too need to hear the dog going there on that Friday morning. So I don't know. We'll talk. But
anyway, we'll be talking. Thanks so much, Steve. And hey, we
Right.
wish you Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah. Okay, I love your comment about Hanukkah, but go ahead. Anyway, our best to you and your family, and thank your wife for sharing you with us.
Well, Merry Christmas to you and to the whole crowd up there. You guys are the backbone of the Republican Party, and you are an example of what other groups should be.
Anyway, thanks
Thank you,
so
thank
much.
you.
Take care.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.